ready to start? Thank you for being here at 9 a.m., by the way. So, hello everyone. Thank you for coming. We are here to celebrate the flourishing Miami tech scene, and in case it's escaped your notice, it's growing at pace. I want to give you some numbers, actually here first. Venture capitalists poured $4.6 billion in 2021 in this city. It's really a magnet for tech startups. And Florida only added nearly 3,000 new tech businesses ahead of both Texas and California. And much of this growth is concentrated here in Miami. So the reason why we're here today is to discuss how to continue this success. How? Through education, fostering partnerships, and creating the right community and ecosystem for tech success. So quickly introducing myself, my name is Lavinia Meliti. As you can hear from my accent, I'm an Italian-born, Miami-based, lawyer into legal systems, but not a boring one, don't be scared. And my journey led me to my current role as Global Head of Business Development for a tech startup called IPwe, where our mission is to democratize access to intellectual property in emerging tech areas. You can find my QR code here if you're interested. But let me introduce the panelists first. So these panelists here, and I'll start with Anna, are driving the growth of the Miami tech scene. Anna is a seasoned tech founder who's leading English for IT and Techville. And she leverages Web 3.0 and VR to transform language learning and cross-cultural communication in tech. So I'll let Anna say a bit more about her wonderful work.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Lavinia. I've been an entrepreneur all my life and an educator. Started out as an educator, and slowly my education path brought me to technology, and this is when I founded the EdTech company. And last year, or a little bit over than like a year and a half, I started thinking about what's next for education, the innovation for my company, for me personally as an entrepreneur and founder. And this is when I got into the Metaverse and exploring the idea for the Metaverse for education, for learning languages and also for learning social skills. And I also got into the Web 3 field, and technically I believe that we have to find ways how we can leverage blockchain technology for education. I will talk a little bit more about this because I feel that everyone thinks about blockchain and NFTs is this just for art. I'm looking at this from the education standpoint. That is why I'm also a community builder, a Web3 community builder in Miami. I'll talk more about that. So technically, whatever you said, building this ecosystem in Miami where educating people on new technology and also innovating your own companies and your own projects, because this is technically what we have to do. We're very early in this space, but I'm happy we're so enthusiastic. There are a lot of enthusiasts in Miami and in the world, of course. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We have Rob, Head of Emerging Tech and Innovation Division at PeakActivity. You're passionate about strategizing and implementing breakthrough solutions in driving the digital transformation of companies in emerging tech areas like spatial computing, machine learning, VR, AR, and many more complicated stuff. Could you introduce yourself further to our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rob Petrosino, thank you guys all for coming bright and early at 9 a.m. after a heavy night last night and happy hour. I saw some of you there. Thank you. My role within PeakActivity is really focused on understanding what a customer's needs are on the corporate side, aligning to their strategic vision in a 5-year, potentially longer roadmap, and then making sure they're iterative in their approach. When we talk about ecosystems, you can't really do that roadmap or planning unless you have a really strong pulse on what the technology is going to be looking like in the forward projection, but also what talent's available. Right? Education is near and dear to my heart. some of you may know, I was an art teacher when I first came out of school. And I taught art in high school. So moving and understanding that educational world and moving into emerging technologies, it's obviously a transition, but knowing what tech is going to be available, knowing what talent is going to be available, you can much better pattern recognize what the future is going to be. So very excited to be here today.
Awesome, Rob, thanks. Last but certainly not least, we have got Jacek here, founding director of the Radcliffe Art and Design Incubator and also professor at FIU. You are many things. You are a designer, an artist, a curator, connecting architectural and artistic engagements within the city, the society, and aesthetic practices at large. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Sure. Thank you again for inviting me here to this panel. And Rob, you did a nice segue here, an art teacher. I'm an art teacher at the university, so it's the same thing, really. And some 6 years ago, I was sitting as a chair of art in the history department, and I was talking to my dean about what is the value proposition of a student who comes out of the art program. Because I had those conversations with parents who are coming to see me over there at the department and say, is my kid going to live in my garage until they're 40? I'm like, not necessarily. This is not the story we want to tell here. Your kids are bringing so many interesting things to the table. So out of that conversation, we met a great foundation called Radcliffe Foundation that gave us money to create first incubator for arts and design in the public school system that deals with entrepreneurship for creative practitioners.
Awesome. So thank you for introducing yourself, first of all. I'm excited to really, thank you, dig in and explore, again, your thoughts, thank you, on education, partnership, and community. But before we jump into that, before I get into that, I just want to spend a few words on the VR/AR Association, which has provided us this wonderful opportunity to have a discussion on tech development here in Miami. So for those of you who don't know, the VRARA, the VR/AR Association, it's a global platform that is dedicated to accelerating growth, fostering research and education, and around the metaverse in general, but I would say virtual and augmented reality specifically. So it had over 50 chapters around the world, but there wasn't one in Miami a year ago. So together with my dear friend and colleague that Taria Stevens, we decided to co-found the Miami chapter. And in just the span of a year, we have seen amazing enthusiasm and adoption from all different sectors within the Miami community. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because Rob and Anna will be taking over and expanding this even more to create a broader South Florida ecosystem. Do you want to say?
Yeah, so we had the Miami chapter, and now we have more enthusiasts who want to contribute from Fort Lauderdale. So we decided, why have Miami chapter, Fort Lauderdale, we're all South Florida. So we are starting South Florida VRAR Association chapter, right? So what it means that we will be bringing events, educational events to the community, everyone who's interested to learn more about VR, XR, or even participate and share their knowledge. This what we will be doing. So in the next 3 months, we will be having the first event. And of course, if you're local, you're invited. So make sure to connect with me and Rob. And yeah, this is exciting because every time when VRAR Association, they facilitate some events, this is the learning moment, right? And I'm really happy that a lot of companies, like bigger companies, VR companies, they really support the initiative, and they're always willing to share their brain, people who work for the companies or gear, just to make sure people understand what it is and they can actually test it and try it out. Right, Rob?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better, first off. But really, when we start talking about partnerships and ecosystems and that type of stuff, the manifestation of associations and startups and founders, et cetera, having a place to go and being able to share knowledge and educate themselves, something like VRARA is fantastic, right? That's why myself and my organization is a member, but also why we believe in the mission, the value, and the goals of the organization. So please, if you're not familiar, please check it out. Anna and I will be happy to talk to you about it.
And I want to say that, everyone can become a member. If you're an individual, it could be university, it could be pretty much, startups, large corp, anything. So ask them if you're interested. So let's jump on the first topic. That is the topic of education. And we've got three wonderful panelists here that can really talk about education. So the internet of tomorrow will look very different. Are we as consumers and businesses ready for it? It's natural for people to play it safe, watching how others make their move before stepping onto the field. I think that tech adoption starts with understanding and education. So it's important that Web3 or the Metaverse, for example, are not just meaningless buzzwords. So the understanding of emerging technology leads to increased adoption, and this accelerates innovation. So speaking of education, I'll start with Anna. You are at an interesting intersection on the topic, right? Because you do a lot of work on building education around emerging tech. So would you like to share more about this?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to share a use case that we have in my company around new tech and also onboarding people in this new tech, right? So my company, it's an e-learning company, right? So we have a traditional standard Web 2, e-learning platform where people, register, they take courses, they watch videos, do quizzes, etc. So what I decided to do, because I want to, slowly transition to Web 3 and use Web 3 technology, but Web3 technology is not available for everyone. A lot of people don't even know about this. So what we did, we built a platform to issue certifications on blockchain for people who graduate, for people who complete courses. And I'm really excited about it because technically the way you build it is just pretty much like any NFT project. But you do it not for the art, you do it not for, pictures, buying, selling pictures, you're doing it for ID, for your certificate. This is technically your digital identification of your proof, whatever. And but the thing is that it is absolutely decentralized, which means that you have to have a crypto wallet, right? Because that's in Web3 world, this is your identity, right? You have to have a crypto wallet so that you can access, so you can get this certification. Well, what happens? What if you don't have a crypto wallet, right? You completed my course, for example, on business communication, right? And you don't know what crypto wallet is. So what I did, I introduced an additional lesson to any course to teach about crypto wallet, and so that by the end of this lesson, they actually have it, right? So technically, because what I need for this certification, I only need your wallet address. So I don't need you to add any money to your wallet. You don't need to have anything in your wallet. It can be empty. I only need the address so that I can issue this certification. And so technically, this is back to the question, how do you build education around emerging tech? So we have this emerging tech, blockchain technology, right? I want to use it as a corporation, but I want to make sure my users understand and they're aligned with me. And I don't want to make it difficult for them because if I wanted to just to give them a series of workshops about what blockchain is, they don't need to know that to get a certificate, but they learn bits, right? They learn the bits and pieces of okay, so this is crypto wallet, and if they're curious, they can learn more, obviously, right? So I'm kind of igniting this interest, and also I make it available for them because right now with all this certification on blockchain, they will learn new things like what OpenSea is, right? Because that's part of it as well, right? And what the MetaMask wallet is, what other wallets are there. And so technically, I think as educators, we have to think of ways that are approachable for people and not overwhelm them with this tech. Because I feel when I just started in the Web3 and the Metaverse world, everything's so much information. It's overwhelming, apparently, right? And as an educator, I understand the problem here. People just want to use these big names, difficult names, terminology, etc. So I think if we can come up with bite-sized learning solutions for this emerging tech, that would be great. So so something like that, I guess.
You found a friendly way to educating your...
Yeah, and actually I'm very excited because, building this innovation for my company, I'm actually killing several birds with one stone, right? Because I am onboarding people into Web3 without even them realizing it, technically, because I'm not going to tell them, hey, guys, I'm going to onboard you right now. Yeah, I don't understand that, right? But they learn more. So technically, and on top of that, like they are taking the course, they are taking like practicing the skill that they came to practice, but on top of that, they're getting more. Right, so they are learning about innovation, and they're actually involved in this innovation process. Yeah, so I'm excited about this.
Jacek, you're an educator as well, and again, you work for the Radcliffe Art and Design Incubator, and that involves helping entrepreneurs turn their ideas into profitable businesses. So what role do you think education play in business?
So I think education is a very kind of at the point when we're in a very interesting crossroads. We need to kind of reinvent what education really is, because we're not educating people for jobs that existed 20 years ago, but we're educating them for the jobs that do not exist today. So I think that's a big question for us. How do we really do that? How do we connect to the industries that understand what is demanded for somebody who walks out of the university with a diploma? Is it bachelor's, PhD, or whatever it is? How are they really fitted to this new ecosystem of possibilities that are kind of emerging out of our conversations? Yesterday, we had a great conference at the university about immersive campus of tomorrow. So educators from around the world came in, and we talked about all the issues that we see. So how do you teach in VR environment? Is this an environment that we're going to convert our old art history classes that were taught with the slides and a gentleman with a bow tie standing over there and professing his idea of an art history, or we're going to take them inside Hagia Sophia, that is a VR space with sound distributed through this sound design and giving them a very different experience. So that's one. The other thing, how are we going to train our graduates to use VR as a tool that is going to help them to move into their discrete spaces when they're going to develop their businesses? So my division at the university is a very kind of unusual space. I work for the College of Communication, Architecture, and the Arts, so you have all the creatives together. And the incubator is this non-sectarian space where I have anybody from the doctoral students to undergrads coming over there and looking for an idea how to take what they perceive as their concept of business to an actual prototype and something that goes into the market. So again, we cannot do it alone, so we create the big ecosystem. We borrow from community. So if the incubator needs a lawyer, then the lawyer comes from outside and talks about intellectual property. If we need somebody like Ghana, we'll definitely invite her to come over and talk to our fellows. So this is really important, that we're not an island outside of the kind of community that doesn't understand what is needed.
Awesome. And speaking of universities, Rob, you are on the board of advisors for NSU Center of Innovation, also Broward Community College. So what do you see as the future for organizations from enterprise to education?
Yeah, so what everyone said already is making sure that education is aligned to enabling students for the future. When you take that from the corporate perspective, right, and work within an organization or a C-suite, the education that you wind up doing for a student, whether it's on Web3, Metaverse, a spatial computing headset, magically, HoloLens, et cetera, you need to have them have a bite-sized understanding of what that technology is and how it's going to impact their business, but also what's happening in the universities at an exploratory and incubator level, so that you can say, these are the types of talent that will be impacting your business far beyond, your C-suite or board of advisor role. So making sure that, myself and my organization is plugged into those board of advisors to hear how tech is maybe not implemented in curriculum, but implemented in the classroom. And that distinction could be a whole dissertation on itself, but understanding what's happening in those environments and being able to align it to the corporate mission, goals, values, and activities that an organization finds meaningful. So understanding what an organization like NSU and their innovation center, or what's happening in those very unique situations, and being it applied up the food chain to the corporate side. Because without that, right, the circular economy of education, job placement, and emerging technology, that flywheel effect doesn't happen, because you'll have someone learning something that is not important to an organization, et cetera.
So I'll add to this, if I may. So universities are very slow systems in certain level because bureaucracies are slow. So I teach in school that has over 50-some thousand students. So curricular changes go through a very arduous process of approvals. But we had to come up with faster solution to this. So creating something similar to what Anna describes as a micro-credential that I can deploy within one semester and teach students within X amount of hours quick skills that are required by the space outside of the university.
that certification program is huge.
And I think here comes the next topic, that is the topic of partnerships. We all need other people. Connection is vital, and some of the best ideas come from joint discussions and bouncing ideas off each other. So I'm sure all of us have heard the proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And this couldn't be more true for emerging tech, right? So Jacek, I'll start with you again. Your work is built around transdisciplinary collaboration. So how have you seen collaboration support the growth of business?
So as an artist, creative, I'm drawn into idea of collaboration. I believe that my skills are not sufficient sometimes to really tell the story, so I need to work with somebody else. It's architecture, film industry, it all relies on multiplicities of talents. So example of our incubator, we have a team of 4 people. I have a graphic designer who came from Yale. I have somebody who is a finance person who also works with economics. And then I have somebody who is a former superintendent of a school system. And then I have somebody who is a journalist. So you already see diversity of it, and diversity is important to us. And inclusive position of bringing different ideas to this team is very important. But again, we are not able to cover all the subjects that need to be really addressed through the conversation of the development of the entrepreneurial venture at the university. So, example, we created residencies at the incubator, and we bring creatives who are representing something what is completely not covered by our own expertise. We're working with a young artist whose name is David Nasagasti, author called A-Hole-Snitz Glue. Some of you may know him. And he developed at the incubator a very interesting project about upcycling garbage and turning this into circular economics. So garbage turns into art, then it gets value and it's sold. But people in his ecosystem who are the collectors, they change or exchange his artwork for service. So if they need a graphic designer, the graphic designer receives a pair of chancletas that are painted by David, and they are the economics. So I brought him very early when NFTs were very kind of on the top of the conversation, and he was teaching our university students about NFTs. What transpired through conversation with David was his intellectual property lawyer came to our incubator and talked to us about the cases when Dave's work was ripped off by the major company. And it went to litigation. He won the case, and several of our incubator dwellers used the same lawyer to fight for their intellectual property rights. So now you can see ecosystem being built here that brings skills and knowledge that may not be available readily at the curricular level of the university. I don't know if it answered the question, but...
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Rob, I see that PeakActivity, speaking of partnerships, has partnered with, among others, Unity and Magic Leap. So how important are partnerships in your business? I know it's a broad question, but...
The level of importance goes beyond probably, it's just below having air to breathe and water to eat on a daily basis for corporations. Quite literally, partnerships and being able to live and die by the methodology of open innovation. So for those of you who don't know this term, it's being a subject matter area expert in your field and being able to pull in others that are important or other subject matter experts in those other ones. So when meeting with a corporation, could be Fortune 100, Fortune 1000, right? Understanding that I can tap into the network and pull in someone from Magic Leap and say, hey, I really need you to be able to convey or understand that this is the customer's problem and this is the impact that I think that you can bring. Can we expand upon that in front of them? So pulling in those subject matter experts, same thing with Unity, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a Metaverse project or a blockchain project or a spatial computing project, having those ties into these different spheres of influence and knowing the thought leaders and the meaningful conversations that can happen. Quite literally, my role is to make sure that I pull in those people so that the people at the center of that conversation, 1, are educated, 2, feel confident in the decision that they make, and 3, see the long-term value. So quite literally, you can't put a more important piece of the puzzle when looking at corporate or enterprise level emerging technology development than it comes to partnerships, because no one can master it all. It's just not possible. It's one, growing too fast, and two, you can only skim across the pond. You'll never be able to get as deep as you need to.
And I think with partnerships comes the topic of community, right? Where Anna, it's pretty strong, and I'll ask you a question in a second. So, let's move on to the next slide. So first, just a little story. When I came to Miami from Rome 5 years ago, two things stood out to me. First, the weather was terrible. It was August, and I was expecting like palm trees and paradise. And then I thought I had no language barrier as I mastered English, but everyone seemed to speak Spanish. So I was like, oh my God, what's going on here? But in all seriousness, Miami grew on me so quickly. I think this city has energy unlike no other. I think we all agree on this. People are friendly, creative, but most of all business-minded. And I think there is a reason why so many companies are moving here. The tech ecosystem has like an infectious energy that drives you to innovate. So Anna, you host discussions, you're a guest speaker and overall advocate for emerging technologies. But the thing I really want to hear from you is that you're building a huge Web3 community. So would you share more?
Hopefully, yeah, absolutely. The Web3 community, it's called The Chain Miami. So again, if you're in Miami, you can find us on Twitter. So what we do, and technically the role of community for Web3, for the Metaverse, is huge because like we said earlier today, universities are not going to teach you this, right? Universities won't teach you about this new tech the way the community can teach you. To be honest, I'm also quite a recent transplant in Miami. I've been here for a year and a half. However, you're so right, Lavinia, because the community here and Miami Tech is so helpful. Everyone is friendly. And like when we talk about partnership, we also talk about partnership like just people partnering with each other, sharing or wanting to learn from each other. So that is why I believe that community is that go-to place, a go-to tool for people to actually learn new things. Right? So I know so many people in Miami who started learning about Web3 like literally 10 months ago. And right now they're already building their projects. They are sharing from the stage. They are helping other people. And I'm so happy there are a lot of women in the space as well, and communities that are supporting women. Technically, to be honest, so I'm originally from Ukraine, and so definitely I raised there, and I can see like the difference in Miami. I feel like Miami is one of the cities that are really supporting women, people who want to start new things, and that is done through community, right? And when we talk about community, so what can you get out of the community? First of all, it's other people's brain, right? Like people who are who already built something, yes, so they can share with you. Another thing that in the community, like for example, for the chain Miami community, what we do, we have a monthly event. It's called Web3 Dinner Club. Yeah, this is an intimate event where we don't have many people, so that you can actually make real meaningful connections. And what I mean by that, you can talk to people longer, ask questions, share whatever you have to say. So this is something that, can drive your interest in the space. And again, I'm very happy to see that sometimes people who know nothing about Web3, they join the community and they start learning, right? So this is not something, they might not go that deep, but again, we are at the beginning this is just the beginning of the Web3, blockchain, Metaverse era, right? And even if you have some understanding of what it is like, when this becomes really massive and, it will be easier for you to understand and emerge in the space. So definitely community, this is something that helps people learn and be ahead of the curve, I would say.
Awesome, and good luck with this. I know you'll do amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So, Jacek, you have been able to engage with different players within the Miami ecosystem. So how do you think we can leverage the Miami's tech community to support startups within your incubator? How important is community for you?
I think, as we say, that to educate a child, you need a village, right? So that's a classic example of that, that whatever happens at the university needs an ecosystem of supporters that, like Anna said, they're going to facilitate speed. So university moves fast when it can, but when it doesn't, it doesn't. But with partnership, let's say with Knight Foundation, we just brought to our ecosystem somebody who is native to Metaverse pretty much, Carlos Fueyo. He's working with us under Knight Foundation flagship over there to develop digital twins. So I have my digital twin that speaks Shakespeare in English over there. So he doesn't look exactly like my...
Like him.
I mean, we're kind of...
Like is a strong word.
Exactly. But so that,
Love and
that
hate
does happen.
relationship.
And again, I think, we are looking at the possibilities of bringing talent, not necessarily to the traditional way of interlacing with academia. So I created residencies at the incubator when I bring people who are investigating their own projects and sharing their knowledge with my fellows who are learning about some other stuff. We have a doctoral student at this point who is working with a robotic KUKA arm to create a solution for sea level rising by creating pods for mangrove formations. She just graduated last year. She was our first DDS person. But now we have another student from Russia, actually, who is working on upcycling plastics and creating some other kind of facilities for, using university waste. We have so much stuff that is really produced by, whatever other labs. So all of that connects, obviously, to real case studies in the community. This is not just suspended in a theory process, but we're really looking for engaging with partners outside of the university walls to provide those solutions and test them as quickly as we can.
And Rob, what does the corporate innovation ecosystem look like in Miami?
Oh, well, what I can tell you is that it's been a fantastic hockey stick growth when it comes to corporate innovation. Everyone understands, well, let's backtrack a little bit. Miami has been known, right? And the mayor and others have planted the flag that we are going to be an epicenter for technology, right? So that's number one. You need to have this thought leadership and willingness at every level, from corporate to government to education centers, to say, hey, we are going to make this ecosystem meaningful and valuable.
Everything is connected. It has to be.
It has to be connected, right? So without a government understanding or governmental funding, that type of it from the state or the local level, you're not going to have those that are interested on the education level, because it's very hard to get funding. And if it's not happening at the education level, it's probably not going to manifest itself in the corporate side. So being able to move through this ecosystem. So that's number one, right? We've planted that flag, which is fantastic and amazing. Now we see the ramifications of that manifesting itself within corporate innovation centers to say, hey, well, maybe our innovation doesn't have to be switching from red pens to blue pens. Maybe we can move into a digital ecosystem where we can start looking at rewards on blockchain, or using spatial computing for our pick and pack warehouse workers. These little pockets, it starts perforating itself through the corporations, because it's starting to happen at the individual level, the organizational level, and the governmental level. So all of those different pressures push these ideas up and manifest themselves really well. So from the corporate side, everyone is starting to do something in that innovation space, and some people are talking about it and waving that flag very, very, very high, and others are doing it a little bit more covertly, but it's happening pretty much in the four walls of every org.
I would add one more thing. So I had this great chance of working with Mayor Levine on her task force for 6 months as an executive on loan from the university, and they were representative of all the educational institutions in the ecosystem here to really think about how we can augment our own environment to facilitate that growth.
Great. So just mindful of time, because there we go. We have the, it's popping up there. I really enjoyed hearing from all of you today. I hope the audience has too. But I just have a final question for all of you, and would love to hear your final takeaway, if any. How do you see Miami in 10 years? How do we want Miami to be seen on the world's tech stage?
Yeah, good question. I think that what we we have to focus on in Miami so that in 10 years we turn into a really a real tech innovative hub is we need to think about talent. Yeah, so we need to have and create more talent because right now that's a challenge pretty much for any company, any tech company. That's a challenge. And there are ways, and of course this is education, right? This is accelerators, there's boot camps, and just like generally, even like the idea that I have how to create more tech talent in this space in Miami. And like the English for IT, my company, we teach English to people who work or want to work in tech. Considering the number of Spanish-speaking population in Miami, teaching them English for IT will open 2 doors for them. First of all, English, and second door is tech. People will learn what the tech industry is about, and maybe they want to, get a job in tech. Because the problem is that a lot of people still don't understand what the tech industry is about. They only think you have to be a coder. No, and especially like new, innovative, like emerging technologies like Web3, there are so many non-tech jobs actually, right? And the thing is that we have to bring that to people's attention. You can be a designer, graphic designer. You don't have to be a coder, right? You can be a community builder. You don't have to be a coder. You just have to love people and talk to people, right? There are so many other jobs that you can do in tech, and that will actually bring Miami to the next level, right? Raise like standard of living, people's salaries, and really create and really turn Miami into a real tech hub. So I think the focus should be on the talent. Then in 10 years, we can really see Miami as a real deal in tech.
I think you can be whoever you want to be. Like, it doesn't really matter what's your background. Like, look at me, I'm a lawyer. And I'm doing business dev, so it doesn't matter, right?
Actually, speaking of that, because I work with people like switchers who are switching their careers, and they come from different backgrounds, like an entrepreneur, like a person who had a little cafe and then like decided to change his career. But like you can be anyone. But the only thing, like what I've noticed among people who I work with, every experience that you had prior to your tech career is very valuable. And the thing is that very often people think that, oh my God, I'm starting this new life, and whatever I did before is not really important, but this is not so true. For example, if you had a little cafe, you are an entrepreneur. Every company would want to have an engineer with an entrepreneurial mindset, right? So this is the soft skills, this is all these like people skills that we have to learn. And yeah, like I'm very excited about this because like we're talking about all this, bringing up new tech talent in Miami means that we will be as educators and like, and we will be changing people's lives technically, helping them find new careers.
Yeah, I have a fantastic, I'll keep this very short and very controversial. Focusing solely on the boundaries within Miami is fantastic, but there's a network effect. The reason that you look beyond just the boundaries of a single city is because you're going to need locations in areas that are outside of that city, just like San Francisco has the Valley, et cetera, that are going to be meaningful and impactful areas for growth development of startups and corporate entities, right? You may not have a corporate entity that's willing to build or buy a 100-story high-rise in Miami, and they may be maybe in Boca, selfishly, right? But focusing on the network effect that's applicable within the whole range. You can have a hub, but you can also have that spoke system, and that spoke system there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great thing. It's a great thing to plant a flag in Miami, but understanding that there's other ecosystems that are local and meaningful and have talent, and that expands the whole network effect. You get that multiple and that hockey stick growth that you want.
Again, from my perspective, I'm probably the person who lives the longest in Miami from everybody here. So I've seen the city being kind of coded as a sunny place full of shady people. I think that's how we used to be called.
I've used that phrase so many times.
But I think what's important for us to remember about equity and inclusion in this city, because new tech comes in and people are displaced. So I was a couple of days ago at Homestead, Florida, looking at some school systems over there. And it was a school full of migrant kids who, some of them were homeless, some of them are living in shelters, some of them are living in tents. how do we really address the needs of those communities by bringing massive amounts of money and relocating people from other affluent communities here? So do they stay in the service economy, supporting this big machine, or how do we incorporate them into sitting at the table where the real conversation happens? And I think that's something what we need to really work hard on.
That's a very good point. Yeah. So I think one of my main takeaways from today's discussion is that there is so much to be excited about Miami's tech future, clearly. And in 10 years, if we expect Miami to be part of the first chapter in many successful tech companies, innovative tech companies. I love quotes, so I just have another one for you here from Steven Johnson that says, if you look at history, innovation doesn't come from giving people incentives. It comes from creating the environments where their ideas can connect. And this is exactly what we're doing here in Miami. We're building a hub where people with disruptive ideas can come together to create, to innovate, and to birth new technologies. So I'm really leaving this conference invigorated, to continue the work, to do the work of building Miami to be the next big tech hub, and I hope you all are too. A big applause to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming.